Look, I'm not accusing anyone here. I'm just saying this is pretty much off the top of my head.
It's simultaneously so silly and scary, right? Because, yeah, it's the musings of a drunkard who's basically, like, you know, coming before you, being like, hey, by the way, everybody, I'm not saying that this is 100% definitive proof that, in fact, that there are things known as book sales, and those book sales can go towards funding Antifa. Glenn Beck just announced that apparently the FBI is asking his advice on how to target Antifa. Antifa. Here's who he wants them to go after. Glenn Beck has spent a decade and a half trying to make a case for various progressive organizations, activists, and fundraisers, and radicals bent on destroying the country. The right-wing commentator is on a constant front of conspiracy theories who famously illustrates purported connections, often extraordinarily tenuous, between various entities on his chalkboard. But now, according to Beck, his rantings against longtime enemies are gathering the attention from the FBI. The FBI showed up to my house to discuss my TV show, Exposing Antifa's Network, Beck posted on social media. Not to mention him, I think Andy No and Jack Posobiec have given speeches as well, which is pretty wild because, like, Andy No, you probably all know as the dude who basically loves to invent things as being like super weapons. He's really good at that. You know, milkshakes are actually cement concrete mixtures. Dildos or silicone projectiles thrown at his face. And he's often talking about how you don't even know the kind of like weaponry that Antifa can you know, invent on the spot. What may seem like simply children's cotton candy is actually a spindle of razor wire hidden within the cotton candy, which can then be used to bash upon the head. They're very effective at disguising their weaponry in ways in which we would think are innocuous, such as things like milkshakes and dildos, but it turns out those are actually deadly weapons in the hands of these super soldiers. And so these are the people who are obviously just going to be filling Donald Trump's brain and the FBI with like hyper paranoia. And Glenn Beck is just like, you know, the perfect kind of racist for this kind of shit, because Glenn Beck is one of the biggest proponents of the trutherism movement for Obama being from Kenya, that he had a fake birth certificate, that he wasn't actually an American, that he didn't deserve to be the president of the United States, and was one of, when he was back on, you know, first Fox News, and then when he eventually had to do his own show because he was a little too spicy for Fox, I guess. One of the people constantly pushing for these kind of conspiracy theories. He famously would just like stand in front of a chalkboard drawing lines between like, and this is why you get Obama plus Kenya equals Stalin, and that's how Stalin lives today inside of his brain wearing an Obama skin suit. And then you'd be like, wow, this guy's outrageous. But apparently now he's informing the FBI. Beck's claim of the FBI interest in his Antifa report comes as President Donald Trump and his administration are attempting to reframe the concept of Antifa as a framework to target their political enemies. Trump responded to the September killing of MAGA activist Charlie Kirk by seeking to implicate as many of his political opponents as possible. He ordered federal state law enforcement, including the FBI and the Joint Terrorism Task Force, to target nebulously defined organized political violence. On October 8th, Trump's White House roundtable on Antifa, Patel promised that his bureau would find every single seed money, donor organization, and funding mechanism that we have. The same day, Beck published to his YouTube his off-the-cuff review of what he mocked as Antifa's decentralized network. Oh God, look at this.
I want to show you this was just off the cuff.
Oh, okay.
This is how hard it really is. Okay. So let's just speculate here for a minute.
Street groups and their soldiers. Rose City Antifa, Portland. Elm Park John Brown Gun Club, Eugene Antifa Oregon, Atlanta Antifa, Pittsburgh Antifa, Refuse Fascism, and Jane's Revenge. The band, or is that actually the name of yet another chapter of Antifa?
Let's call it a starting point for people at the FBI or Justice Department.
Well, I don't have time. Can you get to the meat? How long does it take for you to get to the...
Easy. Are they self-funding all of these things? Because how do we get to the next category, which is support groups?
Okay. The National Lawyers Guild, Antifa International, Community Justice Exchange, the Tides Foundation. Oh my.
For instance, the National Lawyers, but there's no organization in that.
The fund will be administered by Antifa International, an international anti-fascist collective with years of experience managing the International Anti-Fascist Defense Fund and other anti-fascist projects. Dear God, I didn't know how connected this whole thing was. Americans, you told me this was all an idea. All right, you said that there was just two things. You're either a fascist or an anti-fascist, and I bought into it. I was like, I'm an anti-fascist. I hate fascism. But now it seems like this is a deep global network, heavily funded, At least Soros isn't involved.
Money from here. A leaderless group that has no organization at all and just say, yeah,
Right.
you guys know what to do with it. Who knows what to do with it? This is how the radical left-wing money trail operates. It's designed to be opaque. It's designed to be confusing and disappear. But the connections are all there. So why haven't we done anything about it up until now?
Well, can I see the funding sources? No, just one clear shot. Okay. Act Blue. Patreon? What? Oh my God.
You have Act Blue and Patreon. You have Fundraiser.
Fundraiser? Oh my God.
The Action Network. Then you have
Jesus.
book sales.
Book sales. Which books? Which sales? Which book sales? And which Patreons? Is mine under investigation? Shit. This is happening so fast.
Book sales?
What are the nonprofits? The Tide Foundation. I can't read this. Live for Global Justice. Open Society Foundation. Fidelity Investments. Charitable Gift Funds. The Schwab Charitable Fund, of course.
Oh yeah, book sales like the college professor that produced the Antifa handbook. Look, I'm not accusing anyone here. I'm just saying this is pretty much off the top of my head.
It's simultaneously so silly and scary, right? Because, yeah, it's the musings of a drunkard who's basically, like, you know, coming before you, being like, hey, by the way, everybody, I'm not saying that this is 100% definitive proof that, in fact, that there are things known as book sales, and those book sales can go towards funding Antifa, a deeply invested and multinational corporation. Honestly, this organization is in fact probably one of, if the not, you know, the dangerous entities operating today. And then, you know, you look at it and you're like, well, this is just chicken scratch, sir. I don't know if I could take any of this seriously, but at the same time, Kash Patel certainly is, because he's bringing him in to talk about this kind of stuff. He listed the Fidelity Investment Charitable Gift Fund, the Schwab Charitable Gift Fund. These are both donor-advised funds that allow individuals to donate their own money to charities using an online portal managed by a financial institution. Though Beck suggested that the financial institutions themselves were financing Antifa in some way, saying, if I had my money in Schwab or Fidelity, I don't know if I would have it. They're giving it to the people who are supporting these people. My God. So the point here is that they want to start applying pressure to, you know, a bunch of different platforms, Patreon, you know, Fidelity Exchange, etc. And what they are probably going to successfully do, and this is really shitty, but it's just going to be the way this goes, is that when they start applying pressure to be like, well, you want to divest from any association with these radical terrorist organizations known as Antifa. Okay, all right. So we have a list of content creators who have called us names, mean names, and so those are Antifa members. Oh shit, yeah. And I'll be on that list. I mean, it'll be pretty low, but there's going to be much bigger ones they'll go after. You know, people like Sean, Big Joel, big YouTubers, big Twitch streamers and stuff like that, where they can directly point towards one of their funding sources and being like, I don't believe that you should be accepting funding from these people who may or may not have ties to these terrorist organizations. And then if you were like, but at the end of the day, these people are not terrorists, they're just entertainers and comedians and documentarians who are making videos on this. Well, you would say that, but then, I'm not sure if you knew this, but one of the people who we've arrested, who's an Antifa super soldier, said that they were actually a fan of one Hassan Piker, apparently some pro 9/11 terrorist associate, something of that nature, and they were watching him recently. So because of that, I mean, that's really, really dangerous. And so maybe we need to look into his funding and what exactly makes him tick, and we can start there. They're gonna start, obviously, with larger names, because it's a little ridiculous to go after, you know, a lot of the really teeny ones, although maybe they might just do a mass sweep where they're like, anyone who's got under like 1,000 subs, all those accounts can suddenly get banned. It's gonna be really, really fucking scary. And again, this is the degree of like sophistication that we're dealing with. This dude.
That's why they do everything they can to just keep it under the cover, just accuse, crazy. But then it ends up happening. Well, why? Because you've lost now a year and a half. It's going to become too late eventually when the rest of America figures it out.
The progressives use conspiracy theories as diversions.
Now listen to me. That is a powerful statement. That is an amazing claim to make on national TV, to say that progressives in power right now, these people, are putting in place a system that will control every aspect of your life. This manipulation is what's happening again today, and they are counting on you not seeing it. All they need is time to get the framework into place. Now, there's an established trick that they use. Let's go back to Cass Sunstein for a minute. The trick is, when the progressive agenda is exposed, you immediately call it a conspiracy theory, and no one believes them. Do you know where the Kenya conspiracy theory came from? Do you know where that he was born in Kenya?
Trump?
Hillary Clinton's camp.
Oh.
All right. So when a conspiracy, when something comes out, anything, you immediately label it a conspiracy theory. That is a conspiracy theory. He was born in the United States, clear and simple.
Okay. That's good. If you have real proof, real legal documents backing up your claim, please share them. Wait, sorry, Glenn Beck wasn't crazy enough for you? My God, I'm in a weird section of YouTube.
I wanted to lead the show with this, but I wanted to be fair. There is no response now from the White House, and that is pretty much what we expected to happen, but not what I hoped for. I was hoping for change, because I wouldn't even know how to defend or even respond to this revelation. I think that's probably why the White House hasn't responded. We've been talking to you about Van Jones, a special advisor to the president, because he has the president's ear. He has the president's ear, and we know, we have verified, we have his long record, his own words written and spoken. He is a self-admitted communist. He is...
What? Oh my God. Wait. Barack Obama was being advised directly by a communist to implement a communist agenda in the United States. How did that work out?
Is a self-admitted radical.
Whoa.
Who he has said in his own words, and we have shown you the tape, he wants to fundamentally change America. I learned this afternoon that he is also a 9/11 truther.
What?
If you don't know what a 9/11 truther is, let me quickly tell you about them.
Okay.
In fact, let me have them tell you about them. It's a statement from a 9/11 truther group. After the 9/11 attacks, they demanded on their website, quote, a call for immediate inquiry into the evidence that suggests high-level government officials may have deliberately allowed the September 11th attacks to occur. They also have a list of questions on their website that I guess is supposed to pique your interest in the conspiracy theory that the Bush administration let the attacks happen on purpose. Let me tell you something.
Now, this is a neat trick. It's not very subtle, but it's basically like, by the way, person I don't like, Barack Obama. Associate of another person I don't like, Van Jones, who I'm now going to label as a 9/11 truther. What's a 9/11 truther, you ask? Well, now I can move on to another category and talk about that for a little while. And while I'm doing that, by the way, this all goes back. It all is connected. Every line, every dot, they all are interconnected. So at the end of the day, what I am saying is that Barack Obama believes in 9/11 truthers. And by the end of the show, you're just like, wow, I am scared and confused, but I think I learned some things. And this is the guy who's advising the FBI.
I have questions myself. I had many questions after 9/11. I'd like to know about the whole Sandy Berger thing. That just seems weird, and it seems to me that Bush and Clinton were in on that one, both sides. I'd like to know about that one. But none of my questions, and look, what have I said on this program? You have a responsibility to question your government. But none of the questions that I had, and maybe you're different, none of the ones that I had anything to do with the alleged Flight 77 that allegedly blew up at the Pentagon. Nor was I asking if steel can melt or anything like that. Here's what the truthers want answers to. Question number 7. How could Flight...
We've moved so far away from the very start of this, where he was like, I want to talk to you about the president and the advisor to the president, who is a self-proclaimed, I might add, communist. Pretty extreme there. A communist, I might add, who has some pretty extreme views. Apparently, he has some views similar to that of 9/11 truthers. 9/11 truthers, you ask, what do they believe in? Well, here we are to talk to you about 9/11 truth. And like, you know, back in the day, this guy, he used to be the stuff of legend. Jon Stewart would do an entire bit where he would pretend to be him and then, you know, make fake conspiracy theories connecting all this kind of stuff. South Park did a couple episodes where they were just talking about how batshit everything is and how none of it actually makes sense. And if you just keep on saying things, it's like the Gish Gallop, but he's got a prop, right, with the chalkboard. The Gish Gallop with the chalkboard adds some legitimacy to the whole thing because you start drawing the lines and all that kind of stuff. And none of it really ever turned out to be accurate, true, or informative. And, you know, even like later on, there was a lot of comedians like Majority Report. Majority Report used to do awesome bits. Sam Cedar and late great Michael Brooks would have a hell of a time just going through and mocking this guy ruthlessly with purpose, by the way, because again, this shit is fucking, it's hilariously absurd.
77, which reportedly hit the Pentagon, had flown back towards Washington, D.C. for 40 minutes without being detected by the FAA's radar or even the superior radar possessed by the U.S. military. Question number 3, why did the Secret Service allow Bush to complete his elementary school visit, apparently unconcerned about his safety or of that of the school children? Question number 8, how were the FBI and CIA able to release the names and photos of the alleged hijackers within hours, as well as visit their houses, restaurants, and flight schools where they were known to frequent? Number 10, why did the Bush administration cover up the fact that the head of the Pakistan...
This is from 9 years ago. Let's see Baby Sam.
There's a little minute over of Glenn Beck, who kicked off his radio program today by reading a long rant he posted on his Facebook. All right, well, let's hear this. Glenn Beck is... I didn't even realize that Glenn Beck was still around. Now, to be fair, Glenn Beck probably doesn't realize that I'm still around. So, but here's Glenn Beck.
Mr. President, I say this with as much respect as you deserve. Screw global warming. The hell is wrong with you? If you actually believe that global warming is the biggest problem we face, with terror all around the world, an $18 trillion debt, 9 of which is yours, no real allies left that trust us, riots in our streets, riots in our university campuses, race relations worse than I've seen since the 1960s, and a distrust of our fellow Americans unlike anything I've ever seen, you, sir, are either delusional or you're the dumbest son of a bitch on the planet.
Very respectful.
Which is it? Because it is about Islam. So was Boston. So was Benghazi. So was Fort Hood. So was a half dozen others that you failed to address. And quite frankly, sir, so was Ahmed the Clock Kid. It was a timer, not a clock.
Wow. Wow. That was like, you take out the climate change denialism. That's, was that Richard Dawkins talking, or was that Glenn Beck? Or was it the one whose name we cannot know? Oh, Matt, where were you? That was your cue.
Oh, man, that was like a minute ago I was trying to feed you that.
Wow. There it is, Glenn Beck. You
providing some much-needed moral clarity.
Yes, some moral clarity.
Clear thinking.
And the ability within 90 seconds to go from climate change is fake, but a 14-year-old who brings in a science project, he's the real threat.
Classic. Good old classic Majority Report.
Thank you so much to our patrons for making this show possible. We could not fund it without you. And if you want to join, please check out patreon.com/theserfs to unlock bonus episodes, uncensored content, and all the good stuff. Thanks to Anna Loves Riley, Addercap, Bobby Lasers, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hegbard Salim, Multimondi, Omni, Political Papi, Preston Kroll, Quiet One 85, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Demmel, Tigwick, and Words Greenwood.